Welcome on back to Skipper. Today I have 4 must-draft infielders for your fantasy baseball teams. We're on the road to 30,000 subscribers. We got some work to do before opening day. It's going to be an absolute grind, but we're going to keep working hard to get there. Discord, join the Discord as well. We'll chop it up, talk fantasy baseball. Even you guys can tweet me with any of your questions that you're going to have. Let's get into the video. First must-draft player I'm going to have on the infield is Gunnar Henderson, the third baseman for the Orioles with an ADP of 83. Last season in the big leagues, Henderson hit .259, 4 home runs, 18 runs batted in, a stolen base, and a .788 OPS. And absolutely dominated AA and AAA levels in 2022, which ultimately led to a call-up at the end of the season. He ran a high batting average on balls in play at all levels, but still had 19 home runs and 22 stolen bases in just over 100 games in the minors. In his 34 Major League games, Henderson ran a weighted runs created plus of 125, had an 11% walk rate, and an on-base percentage at .350. He also ran a good barrel percentage at 10%. The one main issue for people is his launch angle. His average launch angle was only 2 degrees, and he had a 57.3% ground ball rate. I think this comes with some pitch selection questions. If you're hitting balls at the bottom of the zone, you're going to pound them in the ground, and if they pitch you that way, it's got to start to be some takes for Gunnar Henderson. But I think just a couple things can help with this change. The good thing about Gunnar Henderson being in Baltimore is that he is a left-handed hitter. We know what they did for righties last season, moving the wall back to arguably the ugliest fence in all of baseball with that left field. But he is a left-handed hitter, and Camden Yards was a top 10 park for home runs for left-handed hitters over the last 3 years. After August 1st of last season, Gunnar Henderson had the 10th best hard hit percentage in all of baseball. If he can increase the launch angle, I really think he has a chance of hitting 30 home runs. Lastly, a part of fantasy baseball that we love is the speed aspect. I think we can count on about 20 steals from Gunnar Henderson this season if he plays the full year. He's been running wild in his time in the minors. He has 91st percentile sprint speed, and Baltimore was a top 10 in stolen base attempts team last season, showing their willingness to run starting at the top with the manager. Gunnar Henderson has power to all fields, a great ability to get on base, and top-tier speed. I think Gunnar Henderson is going to be an absolute steal. This ADP for 2023, I would not be surprised to see him in the top 3 rounds picked next season. Second player must draft as an infielder is going to be Nathaniel Lowe of the Rangers. The first baseman has an ADP of 97. Last year, .302 average, 27 home runs, 76 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and 850 OPS. I think Nate Lowe is one of the most underrated players in all of baseball. He's become an absolute on-base machine and has only missed 10 games the past 2 seasons. At only 27 years old, we could be coming into his real breakout season, even after a top 10 finish at the first base position last year. Lowe had a tough start to the 2022 season. I think the second month he hit in the hundreds. It was that bad, but he absolutely raked in the second half. In his 72 second half games, he hit .339, 15 home runs, 38 runs batted in, a WOBA of 415, and a weighted runs created plus of 176. You just look at this chart of his rolling hitter performance over the season. You started low, started the season, and by the end, just absolute peaks at the end. If he can roll that into 2023, I think he's going to have an awesome season. Lowe hit .320 on four-seam fastballs last season, .330 against sliders, and .370 against changeups. He's run a high batting average on balls in play in his career, but the worst it's ever been is only .314. Lowe ranks super well in the expected stats categories as well. He ranks over the 80th percentile expected weighted on base average, expected batting average, and expected slug, pairing that with a max exit velocity in the 90th percentile. I do think his .302 average will have some regression towards the .280 mark, but that's really good these days. Having his strikeout percentage drop 5 points this season to show me that he's made strides at the plate and absolutely the plate discipline department as well. Lowe didn't run up his average by pulling ground balls through the shift, and I like that he didn't absolutely sell out for power by pulling the ball a ton as well. He pulled the ball 33% of the time, he hit the ball up the middle 37% of the time, and went the other way 30% of the time. Again, not selling out for pull side power, he can do it to all fields. Easy way to get base hits. No more shift as well. I think he's just going to take the base hits as they come. He'll get on base. He'll do his thing. And Nate Lowe is going to be a really good option in all formats, but especially points leagues in 2022. This video is brought to you by Peace Collective. If you're looking to rep your team this season, Peace Collective is the perfect place to start if you're looking for merch. You can get 10% off with promo code OwnersBox10 at Peace Collective when you check out. I got a catcher here as our third must-draft infielder. That's MJ Melendez of the Royals, an ADP of 109. Last season in the big leagues, he hit .217, 18 home runs, 62 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .706 OPS. Let's start by talking about his defense, something that doesn't matter at all for fantasy in pretty much 99% of the leagues. MJ Melendez is in the first percentile in framing. Horrible. And he ranks dead last in blocks above average. I think him not catching a lot could be a good thing for his fantasy output. if he can play all of his innings in the outfield. Look at this. It was like IKF 2 years ago when you had him in the catcher position. It's going to be Dalton Varsho last year and this year as well. If they don't catch that many games, unless you're in a weird league, they're not going to lose their catcher eligibility, and he should be more durable during the season with the amount of games he's able to play. In the second half of last season, MJ Melendez had the most plate appearances by anyone who was catcher eligible, with more than 40 at-bats than Dalton Varsho and more than 51 more plate appearances than JT Realmuto in that time. MJ Melendez batted leadoff 64 times this season, indicating the Royals are dedicated to getting him plate appearances in front of Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, being able to create a lot more runs. While the shift ban isn't going to make a huge difference for MJ Melendez, I think they're going to see a nice tick up in batting average. He was shifted on 80% of the time last season and had a 203 batting average on balls in play against the shift. And in his unshifted plate appearances, he had a 412 batting average on balls in play. Melendez was a nice blend of power and being able to get on base last season. He had an average exit velocity in the 81st percentile and a walk rate in the 92nd percentile. I think there's always going to be struggles with rookies coming into the big leagues, and that's not much different with MJ Melendez. I think the power is going to continue, but his ability to take walks that way and turning down the strikeouts, turning them into base hits, will help as he matures. Melendez had a 10.4% barrel rate, which was great, and a launch angle of 15 degrees. The expected batting average for Melendez was 20 points higher than his actual batting average, as well as his expected slug. I think we see a nice little breakout from MJ Melendez in 2023, and definitely a guy I want to be drafting outside of the top 100. And lastly, we have an ugly one at the second base position. A must-draft infielder is going to be Max Muncy of the Dodgers with an ADP of 131. Last year, an abysmal 196 average, 21 home runs, 69 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a 713 OPS. He was one of the must-avoid players for me last season because he had a torn UCL right before the end of the season that he decided not to get surgery on. And after a horrible year on the surface, I think we're going to get a nice discount on Max Muncy, especially if you're playing in leagues that count OBP instead of average. Pitchers decided to pitch Max Muncy differently last season. He saw the highest percentage of sliders he'd seen in his career, and that is a pitch that he has struggled with. But the real telling factor for me was a drop of 110 batting average points against four-seam fastballs, and he was just taking way too many pitches just right down the dick. He ran his lowest meatball swing percentage by over 5 percentage points, and that's just not being ready to hit or being fooled at the plate often. Max Muncy also pulled the ball more than he ever had, and he hit more fly balls with an average launch angle of 20 degrees. Kind of got away from what had made Max Muncy so great the years prior. But one of the great things about Max Muncy is his ability to get on base. In a year where he hit 196, he still had a better on-base percentage than Kyle Tucker, who hit 257. Max Muncy had the third most walks last season, only behind Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. He had an 100th percentile chase rate last year, pairing that with a 91st percentile barrel rate and a 78th percentile hard hit percentage. Max Muncy's a professional hitter at this point. He's an older guy, and I trust him to make big-time adjustments this season. A simple suggestion could suggest that Muncy is an every other year player, though it makes no sense statistics-wise. The numbers would say this is true. In 2019 and 2021 combined, Muncy hit 250 with 71 home runs and 173 RBIs. But in 2020 and 2022 combined, obviously the COVID year hurt some of the counting stats, he had a combined 194 with 33 home runs and 96 RBIs. I think absolutely everything went wrong for Max Muncy last season on the surface, but the numbers weren't that horrible. I think he'll make the necessary adjustments as one of the bigger pieces in this Dodger lineup this season. Those are my must-draft infielders. Let me know what you think. Do not forget to subscribe, join the Discord, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.